Welcome to another episode of Goddamn Liberals. In this episode we discuss post-inauguration developments, D.C. statehood, the Senate impeachment trial, heightened domestic terrorist threat alerts, and what in the world is going on with the stock market. Here are your hosts Robert and Will.
All right, so I thought that we would not have much to talk about now that that guy had left the White House and made it down to Florida. And I understand that he has opened an office of the former president,
yes.
I guess in Mar-a-Lago. And his neighbors are trying to kick him out. Apparently the town is going to have a hearing because he wasn't supposed to stay longer than 7 days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we'll see how long that lasts. But you had listed a couple of things you wanted to bring up there.
Oh, yeah, just I guess it's very, very dense. So of course there's everyone's talking about the Senate trial. Of course, the Republicans are sort of backing down, and it's like, oh, now that he's out of office, we can't hold him responsible for the things that he did when he was in office. When of course, when he was in office, their claim was, oh, he's in office, therefore we can't hold him responsible until he's out of office. So just the hypocrisy is maddening but expected.
I guess at this point they figure they at least have 70 million some odd votes. Although supposedly we're hearing that some of his base is walking away from him. The QAnon folks claim that some of them were duped. Imagine that.
Yeah.
But any suspicion there on what the Senate thinks, or the Republican senators are thinking they're going to get out of this?
Yeah, I guess my best bet would be actually. Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be catering to the Trump base, but of course you're right about the there's sort of the faction that's still sticking with Trump, but then there's Proud Boys and QAnon, which are sort of saying, oh, Trump is a loser now. The stuff that we thought he was going to do, he hasn't done, so we need to find other people. Yeah, I don't know what the clear path forward is. I mean, of course, the moderates aren't happy, but the Republicans haven't really been paying much attention to them anyway.
So the other news out of the Senate or potential Senate, Jim Jordan, which I enjoy his alternate name on Twitter, Jim GYM Jordan, because of his scandal with the university up there in Ohio, and he just looked the other way when the stuff was going on at the university.
Ooh.
But he says that he's not going to run for Senate in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Translation: he would lose. So there's that going on with the Senate. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if the Senate does indeed impeach 45, hopefully that means that he cannot run for re-election because the wheels are already in motion for Trump to run again in 4 years. But I've also said that is at least paying for some of the Trump crime family's legal bills to keep them out of jail.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's just it's weird that it's unsurprising because we know who these people are, but it's surprising that everyone else is just sort of enabling it.
Including Marjorie Greene. So one of my local friends, I'm doing a simulcast on Instagram to see how this goes here, but Marjorie Greene, she actually held a town hall this week. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that my congressman, Barry Loudermilk, has not done in quite some time because he's scared. Mostly that he's going to get asked questions that he does not want to answer. Mm-hmm. But Marjorie Greene in her, safe red district across the way there held a town hall, and apparently I hear that one of the news reporters from one of the TV stations asked a question that she didn't like, and she had the sheriff deputy that was, keeping the peace escort the reporter out of the town hall.
Yes, I'm just a true believer in in freedom of speech and transparency of government.
Yeah. I understand there is a congressman that has filed papers to get her expelled from the House. I don't know what that looks like, because I don't think anyone has been expelled from the House in quite some time, or what that even looks like, but she would be a good candidate. She does not hold her tongue whatsoever. So we'll see if...
Yeah, just the past few years on Twitter, she's been one of the few Republicans to actually literally advocate on Twitter, like killing her, like, fellow representatives and like advocating violence against them on, like, through Twitter. It's kind of, with what you're saying, it's kind of revealing that she's been deleting a lot of those tweets in the past few days. So I wonder if she's actually worried.
Yeah, well, when you start deleting tweets, you're trying to cover your bases.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but fortunately, these are all automatically archived as public records. So she sent them to
that selective amnesia, but they'll still have selective amnesia. I do not recall those tweets.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So someone took over. Ted Cruz called it. Ted Cruz's account, if we can pull up the story from a while back, he had some interesting follows and unfollows in his account, and he just claimed that someone took over his account, his phone, and he, selective amnesia, and he didn't know what was happening. So,
yes,
the Canadian Ted Cruz, by the way. So.
Yes, if only all of these people who, like, would secure their accounts against people doing embarrassing things with their accounts, but nothing else.
Yeah, Joe here locally called him Weasel Ted. Is the nickname of the day there. Kind of liking the simulcast thing. I get some real-time feedback. Let's see. So, Senate trial, which we already kind of covered there, and then also related to the inauguration and everything, the new heightened threat. So now that we have new leadership over at Department of Homeland Security, and the new the regime is out, we actually get warnings that there are crazy people amongst us with these seditionists and terrorists that among us. There was someone from West Virginia that went to the Capitol today with guns, and he had stopped the steel papers in his car. So this is the heightened threat that I guess the previous administration just threw in the trash and didn't mind telling us. I guess we knew they were there anyway. But any other news that you've heard about this new heightened threat from DHS?
I guess nothing. Like that's the main thing. Recently, it's just like it's very revealing to me that I don't recall if we've covered before just sort of the history of covering up the prevalence of domestic terrorism or right-wing domestic terrorism in the United States.
I don't think exactly, but I know that the Trump administration was not interested in talking about anybody except Black Lives Matter.
Yep. Yeah. What's interesting is it actually started during the Obama administration, around 2009. The Obama administration wanted to go after and look into a lot of right-wing terrorism groups, a lot of these militia groups that were formed in response to a black president. Or becoming more active because of that. And the Republicans essentially just shut it down. They made it so the Democrats are just unable to do anything whatsoever unless they conceded that. And the Democrats decided the political cost was too high, so they stopped. They essentially told the DHS to stop looking into domestic right-wing terrorism, and that, of course, continued through under Trump, so it's nice that Biden's finally ending that. But there was just this long-time culture within the DHS. There's several people who formerly worked at DHS who's spoken out about it, where essentially if you advocated looking into right-wing terrorism, like you were blackballed, fired, or any of those sort of bureaucratic things that made you unable to act on that.
Yeah, and the focus from the previous administration was allegedly, not allegedly, it was out in the open, but going out against immigration and separating families at the border, but supposedly that was more of a threat to America than these homegrown terrorists, and so priorities were made within DHS to stop immigration.
Yep.
Meanwhile, these hate groups were allowed to fester, and then for the whole world to see, embarrassingly, they go and storm the Capitol.
Yeah.
And it even apparently affected the Department of Defense, because some of the leaders with National Guard, they were trying to do their jobs, but yet they were having their hands tied behind their backs. Supposedly by Department of Defense, when all that was going on at the Capitol. The scandals are just endless. And honestly, if you worked for that administration, surely you're finding yourself a book deal, because this is what we know about and can talk about. What do we not know about?
Yeah, because there's people that have said that it's just there's so much worse stuff than what we already know, and then there's of course the comment going around of it's a bunch of Trump administration or former Trump administration officials lined up for book deals, and all of the books have the same title of how I was secretly undermining the Trump administration. It's by being complicit in it.
All right, so the other topic that has come up this week, which of course is not going to make Republicans happy at all, but is statehood for D.C. And I'm going to throw into the same bucket Puerto Rico.
Yep. Oh, has anything happened in the past few days with that?
I don't think so. I think the main push is for D.C. first.
Okay.
But, what are you hearing from your end on that?
Oh, just because the bill just got reintroduced into the Senate. I do not know. I don't actually know if Democrats are solid on that. In June, the House passed the statehood bill. So presumably, so essentially, if all Republicans, if all Democrats supported it, then Kamala Harris would, of course, break that tie. The question just would be are they going to, really, I guess then it just comes down to the Republican filibustering rules.
So the Republicans could stop the statehood, I think.
I mean, only if Democrats let them, because it's not really stopping it. It's just a procedural thing. All Democrats have to do is say, hey, you should actually have to, literally filibuster in order to filibuster. You can't just say, I'm filibustering and not actually have to do the intended thing of going up there and speaking continuously to prevent a vote. So it's, and the Democrats easily have the power to change how that works, because obviously Republicans did that in the last 4 years. So it's not like their hands are tied.
Yeah, we will see what happens. I think it's time. Yeah. That's about 700,000 people live in D.C. That's larger than a couple of states, and we've talked about on previous podcasts about taxation and the differences in what states put in and get out.
Yeah.
Also, we've talked about I think it was the Connecticut Compromise that each state gets 2 senators, but some of these states out there, like North Dakota, Montana, you've got 2 senators, but the number of people that they represent compared to somewhere like California or Florida, it's nowhere near the number of people that and the level of power that those folks have.
Yeah, there's no reason that living in a particular place should give you more of a voice in our democracy. It's it's really weird, the mental gymnastics that people go through to try and justify that. Because it's like, do there really need to be 2 Dakotas? Like,
do there really need to be 159 counties in Georgia? Yeah, I don't know. You could argue that till the cows come home. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, and then you got Puerto Rico. The folks down there are not happy at all with the way they were treated after the storms.
Oh, yeah.
And Trump went down there and threw them, rolls of toilet paper and such. So we'll see with this new administration. And I should do a plug here because I've had a couple of posts on social media here and there, and then the lady that actually asked me a little more detail, the service ResistBot. I want to make sure I quote this right. Have you heard of it before?
Oh, yeah.
So resist, I think it's .bot. Make sure I got it. Yeah. So just go to the website, resist.bot. That's not a typo, or it's not .com, it's resist.bot. And that is about the easiest way to contact your elected officials. And my point, especially here in Georgia, with our 2 new Democratic senators, they need to hear from you. I mean, just because we got them elected, it doesn't stop there. You can't just assume that they're going to, know which way to go with everything. They have immense power, and they have immense, office staff, at their disposal. And do be reminded that they have an endless barrage and parade of lobbyists that are knocking on their door, taking them to dinner, treating them to lunches, doing whatever to get them to go their way. And, the ResistBot, I like it for a number of different reasons. It's very easy to use. They keep track of where you live. They keep track of your elected officials. You can write to federal officials, state officials, all the above. But they do things like, okay, at the end they say, do you want to tweet a copy of your letter? Because, especially the experiences I've had, especially with my Republican congressmen here, you send letters sometimes and they go into black holes and you never hear anything back into File 13 because it's known that it's an issue that they don't care about and they're not going to engage with you about it.
Yep.
So use that as a way to, well, look, if you can say that these 50 or 100 constituents had an issue and they were on one side, and this elected representative just chose to ignore that, okay, hold their feet to the fire.
Yep.
Why are they just sitting back and sticking their head in the sand and acting like nothing happened? I mean, these people allegedly wanted to be in office so bad, they need to do their job.
Yep.
And so it will, tweet a copy of the letter if you wish. You don't have to do that. Some people don't want a copy, and I understand that for privacy. You can, keep that out. And then the other thing it will do, this is a newer feature I've noticed, it will make a copy of it to actually turn it into like a petition. So it'll put a little code at the top, and you can text that code or encourage your friends or like-minded folks to do that, and it will send the same letter to the other person's elected officials as well.
That's really cool.
So, and it's, I put in air quotes, free. They are a political / nonprofit organization because they mostly, I mean, they're called ResistBot. They're progressive. But they technically don't hold a political affiliation. I mean, they send letters to Republicans just as equal as they do Democrats, and then they don't treat any of the elected officials any different. But it was, there were a couple of Facebook groups that I was a part of, and there were discussions going on. And I say, hey, folks, talking about issues as we do on these podcasts all day long are great, but until the people in power hear the way you feel, you're not getting a whole lot accomplished.
Yeah.
So you have to, take the next step, write up a couple of sentences. You don't have to write a novel. And actually voice your opinion and encourage others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
If only I was able to, and I may do that. I've done it in the past, engaging with you can call the elected officials and maybe consider recording the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to you if you want to, but. Depending on what wedge issue Marjorie Greene does of the week, that may turn into a phone call short term here, and see what her, if you can back her office staff into a corner.
Yeah.
Oh, bless her heart.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did we have here? We talked about statehood. Any other post-inauguration developments that have jumped out at you?
And nothing immediately comes to mind. Just sort of on those topics. Yeah, just it feels like I can breathe a bit easier now that Biden is in office.
Yeah, several people have posted, and not only that, but that Trump is not on Twitter. I honestly think that, and I think we talked about that a session or two ago, that was his mouthpiece. Mm-hmm. And now that he doesn't have that, and these reporters literally just waiting at their keyboards, waiting for that next tweet to come through, it's, lowering of blood pressure across America, mm-hmm. people not hyperventilating, throwing their phones at the TV.
Yeah.
It is nicer. And, other, expressions of this is talking about the level of scandals. Mm-hmm. I think someone was griping that Biden used, 10 or 15 different pens the other day to sign the executive orders, and that was somehow a scandal.
Yeah. Like, did they not, have they not ever watched, bill signing before? There's been cases where the president has used more pens to sign a bill than are letters in his name.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's part of that is showmanship.
Yeah. But I mean that's allegedly a scandal compared to what this administration got away with for over 4 years.
Yeah.
And the other thing that the Supreme Court held till after Trump left office is they're not going to look at the emoluments clause case. Yeah. Which is unfortunate because that more or less just says that you can hold political office in the United States and profit from it.
Yeah, because if you're not going to do anything, I mean, at this point there is no recourse for that. There is no, they've essentially just said, oh, if you do that, well, nothing happens. So what's it called when something is technically legal but not actually enforced? There's
bad morals.
Yeah.
Morally corrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate, but you can't win all battles, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? The other news that has come up this week has been the scandal with was it GameStop was the main stock that was being traded?
Yes, that's a very interesting case. It's effectively. Are you familiar with short selling stocks?
I don't know enough about it to have tried it, but I feel like I know about a 30,000-foot level. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, large hedge funds were short selling GameStop's stock. So of course, GameStop is the is one of the last physical locations that you can actually buy video games from. Pretty much everything's gone digital at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you can just download it onto your Xbox or on your computer, why go to a physical store? So their stock had just sort of been in the tank for years and constantly declining. And because it had been very reliably declining, hedge funds had bought up ridiculous numbers of these stock, or not. They short sold large quantities of GameStop stocks just because they thought they could pretty much rely on the stock continuing to decrease. Essentially, what a short sell is where you say, okay, give me the money for, essentially I'm going to sell you, essentially it's selling shares that you don't have, and then you say you're going to buy them back later. So the shares don't really exist, but it's a funny, it's a funny financial trick to essentially say, I'll buy them back from you later. And the way you make money from that is if the stock does decrease, then you initially sold it to the person for $10, and then you bought it back for like $8, so you made $2 from the transaction. What happened here was, I believe a new person, someone in upper GameStop management changed that, made the stock price increase some relatively interesting amount. And then there was a subreddit that sort of started noticing what was happening. Yeah, I can't remember the name. The subreddit has since been temporarily frozen, but as a coordinated effort, literally tens of thousands of people started buying GameStop stocks in order to intentionally trying to raise the price. And this is a massive problem for those hedge funds because they've short sold more GameStop stock than the total number of shares. So if the price of GameStop stock doubles, they've lost as much money as they already paid in. The bad thing about short selling stocks is your potential for loss is infinite. It doesn't matter if it went up to $10,000, even though you initially sold it for $10, you're now going to lose $9,990. So there was a subreddit and a Discord channel that essentially conspired together to raise the GameStop stock price, and once it hit $300 from the several dollars that it was a year ago, that made a lot of it essentially worried the hedge fund managers, because it's what was originally them spending, it could have been, if it was $100,000, since GameStop, the stock prices increased so much, they could be literally losing millions of dollars for every 100,000 that they originally put in, which is just this it ends up being such catastrophically large quantities of money that the stock exchanges were essentially starting to consider, we might have to do a margin call, which is really bad for people who've short sold stocks, because it means that you can't wait for the price to go back down before just sort of recouping your losses. You have to do it when it's really, really bad. So the main app that people were using to trade GameStop stock was Robinhood, and Robinhood apparently has some sort of incentive for these hedge funds not to do horribly. So they actually what may end up going before Congress is that they made it so users could no longer buy GameStop stock; they could only sell it, and that's like really scummy. I mean, I don't know what else to call it but market manipulation, because you're essentially saying, I'm only going to allow the stock price to go down.
Mm-hmm.
So AOC has some really good thoughts on that, and surprisingly, Ted Cruz retweeted her and said, like, I agree. So it's, like, amusingly, this has bipartisan support.
Well, let's also rewind a number of years here and look at examples like from the mortgage meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the constant drive here in America to always make money
Yep.
at any cost allowed the mortgage meltdown to happen. And only when, you know, everybody started pointing fingers and asking for their money did people start worrying. So here we have another example where, oh my God, we've been doing business this way for years and years and decades, and somebody, you know, disrupted our business model of just basically moving money around is all they were doing.
Yeah.
And now, you know, we've got to stop the presses and help these rich people out. Well, you know, bless your hearts.
Yeah. Well, if only
now,
they stopped having avocado toast in Starbucks, then they could make sure they don't end up in the poorhouse, right?
Yeah. Or they'll have to actually drive home instead of fly the helicopter home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And heaven forbid. But it's we'll see what happens here. You know, Robinhood, they were an interesting force in the market, and they forced all of the traditional brokerage houses to eliminate their trading fees, because that would have been the biggest stumbling block for so long. Okay, well, yeah, I could buy this stock, but I'm going to have to pay this extra fee on top of it to buy or sell. Well, when Robinhood came out, they were so game-changing and said, oh, yeah, we're eliminating all those fees. You can buy and sell for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an incentive for people to actually be more active and do more day trading.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we are at the point to where it's become such a big force, and people are willing to, and I forget what the numbers are out there. There's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines because we don't know when the stock market is going to burst.
Yeah.
It can't keep going up.
Mm-hmm.
And the previous administration was boosting the stock market and pumping money into it. So it's honestly a lot of smoke and mirrors anyway. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what happens and where it goes. The other one, I think that people were doing this with AMC Theater stock.
Yep. Yeah, there were.
And I think there were a couple of others.
Yeah. Yeah, and Robinhood and a few other trading platforms have done the same type of trading restrictions. It's really uncomfortable. I really want to see what the congressional hearings look like for that.
And I believe my congressman is still, let me look it up. I think he's still on the House Banking Committee, which I believe Mama Maxine is the chairwoman for. Let's see, House Finance Committee, Financial Services Committee. So we can read through a couple of these names to see. Yep, chairwoman is Maxine Waters for this is the House Committee on Financial Services. Mm-hmm. And the members, where's the member list?
Let's see. There's actually quite a few. Is there someone particular you're looking for?
My Congressman Barry Loudermilk is on the committee. Yep. It also looks like there are another new congressman that took John Lewis's district, Nikema Williams. She is on there. AOC is on the committee.
Yep.
So yeah, there are some interesting folks in this committee, and we'll see where this goes. I still one day want to see an exchange between my congressman and Maxine Waters. They probably could hate each other more than anybody else I know.
Yeah.
Do we know what committees Marjorie happens to sit on yet?
Let's see. I bet let's see. Yes, that is on Wikipedia. She's on House Education and Labor. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Of all people, her. Yeah. I don't see. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see other committee assignments for her.
Bless their hearts. I can imagine just them trying to keep a straight face when she opens her mouth. So.
Yeah, where it's just like you were a proponent of conspiracy theories about like Sandy Hook Elementary, like essentially what combination of a moron or evil are you to like say such things?
Oh well, they all wanted to be elected so bad, so this is what they get for either side there. So.
Yep.
It's not for the faint of heart. All right, so I think I've checked off all of the topics we had talked about before. Anything else here?
No, I think that's a good spot to leave off.
Cool. All right, we'll wrap this one up, and something else will come up, I'm sure, for the next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Goddamn Liberals. We welcome your feedback. Please comment on this episode below or send us an email at feedback@gdliberals.com. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Goddamn Liberals. We welcome your feedback. Please comment on this episode below or send us an email at feedback@gdliberals.com.